Well, good morning everyone. I'm heading today through to a place called Stoke near Nelson. That's my accommodation for the end of the night. But to do that, I'm departing Reefton here, heading up to the Maruia Springs, north along the Maruia Valley to a place called Braeburn, I think it is. Turn right over the Maruia Saddle into the Mataketuki Valley down towards Murchison, and then I join the main highway again. So that's a bit of backcountry ride, but I'll tell you which way we're going after that because I don't know myself. Anyway, the bike's all checked over. I'm nice and warm here under all my gear. Got fluids in the back for later on. So let's get into it, and we'll crank her up and go to Springs Junction. It's a little village called Black's Point, only just up the valley a little bit from Reefton. And just as we go around here, the old church on the left there is holds the archives and the museum artifacts from the Reefton and Angahua area. Really worth a visit. It's a great little museum there. So this is my first leg of my return trip back to Tauranga. I cross the ferry tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, getting into Wellington towards 10. So as I work my way up here to the Rahu, I was just reflecting on my trip to date. 4,790 k's since I left Tauranga, and my overall average speed is only 46 kilometers an hour. I thought, how can that be? But that's because I've done a lot of back roads, and sometimes you're down at very low speeds in first gear, climbing hills and overpasses and up rumpty-doo roads and things. So there's very few times that you're up to highway speed of cruising at 100 kilometers. My last video was the Hara hunting and fishing competition held over the Easter weekend, and it's interesting to be amongst all those young fit men who have the recreational sport of out hunting deer in the wilds. Some beautiful animals came in, and they were in top condition too, because this time of the year is the roar. That means that these or rut, and they are building and yelling out for females and dominating the areas, etc., for breeding purposes. But when I was a boy, I was more of a lethargic hunter than some of those young bucks there. There's a place up here called the Blue Speck, and you work your way up onto the tops there. That was one place that I went several times, but I was exhausted by the time I got up to the tree line there and started hunting. There's such a thing as the tree line up there. You can't see it riding into the lake like this, but that's generally up between 1200 and 1350 meters, where there is an abrupt change in vegetation there, moving to tussock and short shrub, and that's where we used to go up there hunting there, looking over a ridge and just seeing whether there'd be a deer around the next court. So I think always exciting to do that. The tree lines, yeah, I was reflecting on the tree line in New Zealand here, which is much lower than it is in the northern hemisphere, and it seems that the New Zealand tree line is very low because we are a coastal country. Really, there's nowhere really that you can get further away from the sea than about 80 k's. So as I come up here, we're heading up to the top of the Rahu again. cresting the top of the Rahu Saddle now. So now I'm into the valley called the Maruia Saddle, down here to Springs Junction. I don't need fuel. I could get right through to Nelson on this tank full, but I just always like to top her up. So there's a spot down here that I called in the other trip, and I'll give her another little drink. Coming down and around Palmer's Bend. So I got a little map here. Brae is my next turn off, over a pass and a saddle there into the Mataketuki, and then work my way down here. I've got a friend I'm going to call in for a cup of tea, on to Murchison, and then I'm going to decide whether we're going up over the mountains here to Lake Rotoroa. Okay, I got the sun over my right shoulder there. She's rising in the east. It's about, what time is it now? 10 AM. And so I'm heading due north, more or less up the fault line here through to Murchison. And as we get further up here, you'll see the ragged mountains around Murchison there, where it was shattered in 1939 in their big earthquake. But when I was a boy, I keep saying that, but when I was a boy, I used to go out to a farm out the Waidahu there, and a man called Arthur Borrell, he was a high country musterer that came and farmed in the Waidahu Valley there for some time. A horseman, cattleman, had a lovely mob of dogs and all that sort of thing. Lived on his own there in a big house. And Trevor Johnson and I used to go out there and ride horses and follow him around when he was getting his sheep in and things. Really a nice bloke. I've got the green lights here to go across this bridge, so we'll do that. But why I'm mentioning Arthur Borrell is he had the run or the lease for his cattle up the Waidahu Valley for many years there, so he'd poke them up there in the spring, and they would graze all summer up the river flats, and he'd pull them out before the winter when they were calves were due to be taken off them and fattened and sent away. So the story that I'm telling you is about Arthur Borrell. He wasn't afraid of the high country at all, and it was quite an inspiration to us as kids. He saddled his horse and he rode all the way up the Waidahu River there until the horse couldn't travel any further. Took the bridle off the horse and tied it to the saddle and slapped its ass, and away it went home again. So the horse went right back down to his farm there. No doubt someone that was there to unsaddle it. But Arthur then walked over these mountains to my left here with his dogs and came over here to the cattle sale yards here at the Maruia. But he taught us a lot of things. He was, when he's castrating his lambs, he just put his dogs around them out in a big paddock like so. The dogs would get them into a ball, and Arthur would sprint in amongst them and grab a lamb and put his earmark on them, whip the end of the pouch off if it was a ram lamb, and he'd get down there and bite the bloody things out. So his face was covered in blood, and he'd be down there biting these mountain oysters out and spit them out to the dogs and keep them going as well. Very interesting process it was as a kid to see that carrying on. I stopped in this spot to show you what this valley is like compared to a lot of the others. Other valleys are big U-shaped valleys where glaciers have moved down them in years gone by. But this one here has got more contours in the bottom. You see the hills here inside the valley, and as I come round here, there's another hill here inside the valley. Well, that's because this is the main fault line right away through to that big darker cloud away in the distance here, right on down to Fox Glacier down there. They're doing river protection work here, so as the river's coming straight down here, it's boring into the road, so they build these groins out like so, and encourage the river to boil its way out and get away from here. And effectively it's worked. You see there's several groins all the way along here, and that shifts the river back out onto the other side. This is the initial one here, a few big goolies up here, and that's slowly moving that over there. But that would be a lovely place to go fishing, wouldn't it? Crystal clear water, because there's no pollution coming from up here. There's very few dairy farms or anything there, and now New Zealand's got regulations about discharging and managing the riparian strips etc. all around their farms anyway. You might be able to see that's the valley that we're in, Maruia Valley, but we're going to cross that side of this next hill here and work our way down the place called the Mataketuki, and so it's not far up here that I need to turn right. This is what we're after, the Maruia Saddle. What's this one saying? Back to Springs Junction, Lewis Pass, Nelson and Murchison. But we're going up this road here. Let's do it. I just have to crack the visor a bit because well, we're riding into the sun as well, so that won't be so good. The dock sign to my left there was the Warbeck Scenic Reserve to my left. If the road's like this, I'll be very happy. But I spoke too soon, eh? Extremely narrow and winding with rough surfaces. 4-wheel drive recommended, and stream crossings ×6. We've got 3 k's to go to the summit. Oops! Got 3 k's to go to the summit. Up on the pegs, and we'll just see what you can do. Bit hard to see where this road is with this sun flashing in your eyes, but I could ride with the visor up a bit. Supposed to keep to my side of the road because the instinct of the other driver is to go left to avoid you. Just talking to a truck driver back there. They're doing their load swap. One fella come from Christchurch, the other one from Nelson. So they just swap trailers and away they go again. One bringing food to Nelson to pack and save, and there's a load of posts going from Nelson, from the big forest there, all the way out to Rakaia. So you'd never know what was on those big trucks unless you were to stop, talk and chat. There's a nice bit of back road, isn't it? Steady. I'm in number 1, and we just let her walk around here like that. I push the bike to the outside and push the bike to the outside and hop on the inside here, and up she comes. And who would know this bit of New Zealand was here unless you come round on a motorbike? And it has to be an adventure bike, doesn't it? could go wrong? An adventure starts when things don't go as planned, they say. And I was just watching all the insects around that big truck there. They're bloody bumblebees are everywhere. And sniffing and snorting around, and when you take your gloves off, they're around your hands. And this beech forest is notorious for wasps too, because there must be a certain amount of sap or something that they live on. And once wasps get going, they're just everywhere. But they should be becoming more and more dormant this time of the year anyway. It's more peak summer that they are everywhere. But this is a beautiful little road here. Not that I want to go faster, I think, because I am enjoying the ride. And there's been no rain, so, but they did say that there's 5 or 6 water crossings. So if you remember back to my big river ride there, that's where I fell off. So I'm going to be cautious and do my due diligence when I get to the water crossings. Although these big boots here, they are waterproof right on up to about a foot, I suppose. And but it's a long way to go to bloody Tauranga with wet boots, so I don't want to do that. Pick our mark and go through quietly. That feels as though we're going downhill now, so I have to be extra cautious, being on your own, of course. The next vehicle through here could be another 10 hours or something like that, and it's a long time there just waiting on the side of the road with a broken angle. I have got my E-perp there. See that yellow one there? That's my personal locator beacon, but that is last resort thing. Oh look, if this is one of the crossings, we're right, aren't we? Count that down. 5 to go. Two fingers over the front brake just to steady you back a bit. If this is another crossing, 4 to go. Let's bring her back in speed and limp through that one. That would have to be counted as another one. Well, there's not much hope getting wet socks in there, is there? It's those real deep ones and the long ones where the bike gets out of control because of the loose gravel underneath. She goes left, right, down. You either go fast or slow, or wet or dry. That must have been the top of the pass because we're sneaking down all the way in here. And if this is a bridge across a waterway, we're down to number 3 already. This looks pretty new, doesn't it? Well, I was thinking I'll turn the camera off for a while, but it is quite nice, so we'll just let it roll a little bit longer. Two more crossings. Oh, that's a dangerous one. Are these possums on the road here? No, just rotten logs. You know, in my 67 years I have never been through here. And that is a miracle, because the boys used to always say, oh, they're going through the Maruia Pass spotlighting, and I never went with them. I always turned off and went up the other way over the pass and done those flats on the other side. But some of them, this was their spotlighting route, and they would have known where the flats were and where the best place to get a deer was. These ferns are growing up here, looking lovely. I got a stone chip which shattered my driving lights on the front of this bike, so I just put RTV over it to protect it until I get back home. I've ordered another one for when I get back to Tauranga, and that's where it'll be delivered to. So I should be home in about 3 days, I'd say. Knobbly marks. You see the marks coming down the road there? And you sort of can pick the line that a motorbike takes as opposed to a car. So you may have come through here in a hurry, and you can see too they power up on the straight, tear the mud up. Here's a car coming, so I'm best just to pull over and let them come past me. Look at that, plenty of room. Hello. Uh-oh, here's another big crossing. Let's check it, because we don't want to go gutsa. Whoa, Betsy. Look, I don't think that's going to give us any trouble, but I've said that before. Let's take this inside line here and sneak through with a bit of, have me trainer wheels out. That's the way to do it. I think I'll stay in number 1 and get up on the pegs. That seems to be the most comfortable ride for me. And no doubt the camera's getting a better ride too, because it gets all my suspension. And we'll just let the bike do the work in underneath us. Look at that for a perfect crossing. I think that's the last one we need to do, because I was counting back down 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that was number 1. My GPS in front of me is giving me some clues of how far we've got to go down till we hit the river. There's still about another 4 k's of this. Then we go up the river on this side till we strike a bridge, and then way back down the other side. So I'm back down on the flat now. We've got to head up the river a little bit. Oh, here it is already, the bridge across, then way back down the other way. Let's have it. Crystal clear. I think that's one down over here, just sitting there and under the rocks here. See 2 of them there? Just see their tails going. I'll throw a stone and see if you can see them dart away. No. It needed a bigger stone to get the desired effect. You see that one out there? There, see him go? He didn't know what the hell hit him. This is the river crossing we're after. Horse Terrace Bridge. Huh. Well, that's worth a look too. Let's put the bike here for a sec and have a squiz at that. Oh, spectacular. Let's look the other side. Can you see how abrupt those hills are there? This is all part of the fault line, and we're getting close to Murchison, and it's only 20 odd k's away, where that big earthquake happened in 1939. But this is a bit of alright, isn't it? Ideal to come through there snorkeling. So we've got about another 20 k's to go to Kim's place, and we'll go and have a cup of tea with her. And just I was trying to get my GoPro on as I come through that piece of bush, because there was 2 deer standing there. I thought unusual for them just to be standing there, and then when I got closer I could see they had ear tags in them. So they've just come out of the paddock somehow or other. But they were definitely out here in the wild. They weren't in the where they weren't behind fences. 2 big yellow ear tags in their left ear. Yeah. Well, it's been a lovely ride down here. I just got behind a car. He poor farmer pulled out in front of me, but a bit of dust, but that doesn't matter, does it? But this lady we're going to have a cup of tea with is Kim. She was with us when we were children back in Reefton in the 50s and 60s. It'll be good to pop in and have a quick cup of tea with her. I don't know whether you can see it, but there's a papa face there slipping out onto the road all the time. But that's just a lovely view down there too, isn't it? Yeah, this stuff all breaking away and falling down onto the road. That's the way of it though. Well, that was a lovely visit with Kim, catching up on old times, renewing our acquaintance and talking about their family and passing jokes and sharing fun. So here I am at Murchison. This is a T intersection here for me. We just cut to the right now, and this is the road through to where we're going to Nelson, really. So just bring it back to a steady roar. Bit of indication on. There's some fellow biker there. No one coming from my right, no one from my left. There was a second part of this ride that I was thinking about, and that's this next valley on the right here. It's called the Mangles, and it takes you right through to Lake Rotoroa. So let me just ponder whether we're going to do that or not, and I'll turn you on when I've made a decision. As soon as I started riding on the hard, I thought I'm going to be in back in Nelson in no time. So Upper Mataketuki Track, Nelson Lakes National Park, 33 k's. Let's go and do that. Kim said it's not as good a road as the one that I've been on, but that's alright, we can cope with that, can't we? So I'm thinking it's 1:15 now. Let's see what time we get out the other end of that. We come out of a place called Gowan Bridge. What a lovely little valley I didn't know was in here. So we're working our way up through this valley here now, through to Lake Rotoroa. Kim is a nurse that works at the hospital in Murchison there. She's coming up for retirement in a year or so, and she's planning a cruise, she calls it. Being into horses, her cruise is not a cruise liner out on the ocean, but a cruise through the backcountries of Nelson Marlborough here with her horses and a horseback. there's the standard roads, but when you've got a horse you can go up and into the gullies and valleys and camp way up there. She says a good day is about 20 to 25 kilometres with a horse, and so that's something that she's really looking forward to in her retirement, without the obligation of having to come back too quick, and to have some special time with the horses back in the mountains camping. Oh, we want to turn left and go 15 k's that way, not that way. Watercourse? Let's see if it's slippery. I got my trainer wheels out. Nah, wasn't slippery. So we've left the farming valley now, we're climbing up the ridge here, and I think there's about 25 k's of this sort of backcountry road here to go on. The temperature is 17.5 degrees and it's just pleasant rolling through here. Now there's another waterway. It's the fact that it might be slippery that put you down. Let's just sneak here with trainer wheels on. Not an issue. Hello, there's a tree across the road. Someone else can clean that up. So I think that's what we're doing now. We're following this transmission line right through to the lakes. And if the road's as good as this, I'll be very happy. Another watercourse. Three out of three, okay. This appears to be the top of the pass here. Everything's downhill from here on. Well, this is a beautiful stand here of timber at the top end of Lake Rotoroa. Just to discuss how this trip's gone for me. It's been marvellous, really. I've always wanted to do it, but never got round to organising it. And with this bike behind me here, she's taken me on some wonderful places. So my advice to others is just get on and do it. It's once you're out there, you get in the swing of it and away you go. So I've just looked after the tyres, the oil, and made sure she's all tight and clean and tidy before I set sail. And she's done me well. The BMWs are renowned for reliability, and I haven't regretted buying this bike. The second aspect that I wanted to get across is that my skills have increased as I've had time in the saddle. My riding on the straight and narrow, my riding on the gravel roads, my ability to brake and control the bike have just gone through the roof as I've clocked up the miles. One other aspect is that you need to allow time to do this sort of trip. I'm lucky I'm retired and I can please myself really how I go about it. I don't have to rush back to work, but it is about pacing yourself. My first few days I was doing far too many Ks and just seeing the road disappear under the front tyre. But now I've slowed it all down and come to some lovely spots like this and slowed down and stopped at bridges and seen the trout swimming in the river, the ducks and the bird lives and things like that. So that's what I just slow the pace down is the trick. As good as stop and meet the people and talk to them, get to know them, what's going on in their area, farmers, business operators, and just spending time getting to know them and the accommodation providers. I've been using Airbnb throughout New Zealand, and I've met some lovely people that way. So put yourself out there, give a bit of yourself, and you'll receive a lot in return. To have a record of your trip is also important. The way I've done it is by using a video on my helmet and recording and telling stories and meeting people as much as I can, the odd interview, and that way I can look back on it as I edit it. It becomes more vivid, and I've got a memory for years later when I want to look back at my travels around New Zealand. And I enjoy sharing New Zealand with people overseas too, who haven't been out to this country here, and show them the splendour that we've got in our own backyard. So I've still got another 2 days before I get back to Tauranga, but I can find no better spot than this one here at Lake Rotoroa in the National Park in Tasman district there, inland from Nelson and Blenheim, to give my thoughts on the trip so far. So we've got 87 k's to go to our accommodation. Well, we're just coming up the Rahu Saddle now. So that really concludes this trip, and I wonder what will happen next.